Alrighty, welcome to Comics Covered, where Matt and I, the co-founders of Cover Price, talk about interesting stuff in the week. But this week, we're doing something especially fun. We didn't come live. We didn't come to you guys live last Friday because we were doing San Diego Comic-Con stuff, as we tend to do. And one of the things we did at San Diego Comic-Con was a big panel on the comic book ages. So today we're going to talk about that. But before we do, Matt, how you doing?
Just peachy. I think this is our first show together in a month, by the way. Because you were like off for like 2 weeks, and then I was off for like 2 weeks. We didn't do one, so yeah. So it's nice.
Is it fair to say we co-host, or could we just say we occasionally co-host this thing together?
Well, since we've only been doing it for 2 months, I guess occasionally is the proper terminology for right now.
Yeah,
This is a very dynamic show. It's very polished. So
smoke and mirrors. It's all smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
So today the big theme is we're going to kind of run through the presentation that we did at San Diego. And I don't know if you guys saw this, but for our members, we sent out a survey link with about should we break up the modern age? How should we do it? What do you think of this? What do you think of that? So we're going to get into the results. We had 2,600 people respond to that. And it was, so great turnout, good numbers. We'll talk about that. Hey, there's Lando. Hey, Lando. And hello, everybody else in the chat and everyone who's watching. We appreciate you guys. If you can, please don't forget to like and subscribe and help those numbers and those algorithms and all that stuff.
And Landon, you're always welcome to jump in, but I think even I'm taking a backseat tonight as John just runs through this thing today.
Yeah, basically, Matt's going to jump in. I'm just going to present kind of the stuff, but it's a lot of fun stuff, I think. What are we going to give away today, Matt?
I figured with Witchblade being fairly popular and there's a billion covers, we're going to use our friends KRS's Natalie Sanders covers for Witchblade #1. I thought that'd be fun to give away tonight. And if you don't like it, you know what? I'll just send you something else if you win it. Because there's so many. There's so many.
We should probably commit to one. Otherwise, it's like,
we'll commit to this one. But seriously, if you don't like it, this is a great cover. I love KRS. Natalie Sanders is fantastic. One of her most popular covers is actually another Witchblade cover. And with KRS, so she is returning to this character. Yeah,
that's pretty cool set. One question though, what are the red things in her leg?
I haven't read. I don't know what the red balls are. I assume they're like lesions. No, I don't know. I think it's just to make it's like jewels ish. Why do Witchblades need red things? I don't know. I don't know. This is beyond.
It feels like a utility belt. Like she's gonna throw out some demons or something. Who knows?
Yeah, people know. I told Chris to watch today, so if he's watching, maybe he can chime in and be like, "Oh, the red balls are for this today." Yeah. I don't know.
We'll find out by the end of the our thing today. All right.
Yep.
Anything you want to mention before we jump into this presentation?
So you're asking the question: is it time for a new era? Right?
Yes.
The answer is no, and then that's it. The show's done. We can just move on.
God. Okay, start our Friday. Let's do it.
Yeah. Let's call them spheres, not balls. No, you got to call them balls. She's got a lot of balls.
That's fair.
And you could print that. No.
Spheres does sound better, actually. So
yeah, spheres is, I have no idea. So we'll have to look. But that set was pretty popular. I think it was San Diego Comic-Con exclusive too. So out of that convention, that was a good set to have. And if you haven't checked out, go to our site, go to content page, look up the San Diego Comic-Con tab, and you can scroll through there to see what the most expensive books out of the convention were. Now that the dust is settling, you can kind of see some of the books that are have the strongest aftermarket traction. And that's I kind of keep checking that every day, just because it's fun.
Yeah. So you'd go to content, you'd click on this link here, you go to the special little page. And we also want to thank everyone who stole the list and put it up on their side.
No
Weeks
one's
of doing it. So thanks, everyone.
It's all good.
But check this out. You can go through it and, like, for example, you can see which one's starting to trend for raw values. I don't think there's going to be too much slab, maybe some pre-sales. What's going up. We got some more Witchblade. So it's a really handy dandy fun list to poke around in.
Yeah, some that's on our Shaker list today. We actually covered a few of them. Like if you go back to the Raw John, because there's not as many graded sales right now. But we have that Mighty Morphin Power Ranger one. We talked about that one in our Shaker report. We did a couple of the Skybound panel books. And I think we covered Camacho, which is the book I really wish I would have got a copy of. Or I should have had you pick up a copy for me while you were there.
I didn't know about it until,
I didn't know about it till afterwards either. We had it on the list, but it was popped up on like Sunday, I want to think. It was a surprise
How do you spell Camacho? There it is. Camacho with
Terry. I'm a huge fan of Idiocracy. It's probably a film I quote way too often, and I feel like we live in that world now. And so I keep saying that electrolyte or plants. It's got electrolytes. It's got what plants crave. There you go.
Yeah, such a good movie, and it definitely holds up. They were all wearing Crocs in that movie.
Yeah, that Instagram reel has been going around where telling that little story about they're trying to find the stupidest shoe that they could find, and they landed on this thing called Crocs. Yeah.
Well said, JD.
And now everyone has one. Like, I don't own a pair of Crocs, but that's just because I'm not that cool. So
yeah, it's more of a cool thing. So
it's a totally cool thing. Yeah.
I'm going to share my screen, and I won't be able to see anything. Matt's going to be able to see everything. And tell me if you can see us. I don't even know if we can see. I'll just take us off or whatever, and we'll just do a full-on screen share here. All right, let's jump in. And Matt's going to man the comments. And we'll make sure. So real quick,
I'll comment on it too. And after this, go to on our main page. Go to posts after the end of the show, maybe a little bit after. I'll throw up a poll where you can actually choose what you guys. This is based off of an actual a survey that we sent out. But it'd be great to get your everyone watching to see what you guys thought. The error should be called afterwards. And currently, the poll that's up there right now is: do you agree with Robert Downey Jr. playing Victor Von Doom? And there's 3 options there. So we'd love to see what you guys think about that.
What's the third option? Yes, no, or
it's yes, RDJ can do anything. That's 1. And then no, this is a huge misstep for the MCU. Or 3, not sure yet. Let's see how this plays out.
Oh, that's a longer conversation.
52% say, let's see how this plays out.
Yeah.
And then it's pretty somewhat evenly split between yes and no. So, you got a lot of people on the fence, but let's be honest, we're all going to go see it regardless. So, I saw everything else. So, I think once you watch Madam Web, there's really nothing else you can't watch, right?
You've debased yourself enough.
You went as low as you could possibly go in the comic book film realm. There's no other way to go than that.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is it's a pretty long presentation, so I'm going to try to go through it kind of quick. Matt, you can see it, right? It's up.
Yeah, Laverian Age. It's a time for a new era. San Diego Comic Con International. There you go. I see it.
Awesome. All right. So real quick, the question is how do you break up 182 years of comic history? And what has happened over the years, right, is that people have, and stop me, Matt, if like I said, I can't see anything.
Sorry. I just saw you. Yes.
Yeah. Whenever I give Matt the chance to stop me, he'll stop me. So there's a lot of different versions of how the ages can be played out. The top line is kind of like what most people accept. Below that is from Steve Jeppy. He came up with, including this timeline with the Copper Age, the Chrome Age. Then we have a lot of people talking about the Dark Ages, even the Iron Ages, the Diamond Age, all these different aspects of it. But there's really no definitive rule, except for the fact that websites like Cover Price or eBay or whoever use it for their hierarchy, when you're searching for comics. But we're going to talk about why and how this originated. So we're going to break it up and talk about a bunch of the different ages. So it's a bit of a history review. And I think it's pretty interesting because in doing this research, it took forever to do it. But
John Hume says he needs Victorian ages only.
Oh, perfect.
So,
okay, that's fine. You got 55 years of awesomeness. So real quick.
But going back over 140 years, you got
it's good luck.
Is there anything left from that? That's the question. Is there anything out there?
I mean, that's why all the Golden Age stuff is so incredibly rare, because it survived war, it survived depressions. It's insane. Victorian Age.
Fun fact. I'm going to derail you for a second.
Yeah,
but one of my most wanted things is to get. I wanted to get Good Housekeeping #1 and get it signed by Will Ferrell, right? Because I'm a Step Brothers fan. But I realized that the first appearance of 75, so that is not going to happen. And then I try to find one with John Stamos on the cover, and there isn't. So I'll just have to stick with a regular Good Housekeeping. Anyways, that was my Victorian.
Great on not derailing anybody, by the way.
That was my tie into the Victorian age. Okay, continue. Sorry.
All right, thank you. But feel free, honestly. Can you? By the way, can you see the full screen, or can you see us still?
Yeah, I see Victorian age, Platinum age, Golden age. So
are we on camera though?
Yes, we are.
Okay, fair enough. Okay. And feel free to jump in then, Matt. Where did the ages come from? The short answer really is that it's messy. We don't know. There's a lot of theories. There's a lot of historians who say what they think where they came from. But what we do know is that all of the ages were defined after they ended. You can't be in the age and go, oh, this is the whatever age. You have to kind of look back. There's all these cultural shifts and comic book events that happen that kind of define it. They're used by comic book fans and industry to make sense of this massive collection of comic books across 82 years or whatever, 89 years of comics. And there's a general consensus that the naming conventions follow a metal theme, which we'll talk about why. But again, there's no hard rules. No one sat down and actually defined this. It was all retrospectively done. So let's jump into the Victorian age. So in 1842, the newspapers in the United States, they started publishing European works. And it was actually interesting because they didn't have
European.
Europeans with their crazy, wacky comics and illustrations. Most Americans didn't have permission to do that. They completely unlicensed, grabbed it, and just reposted it and copied it and stuff. And it was pretty successful. So in 1842, the work of Randolph Topher was published under the title of The Adventures of Obadiah Oldbuck in the U.S. And again, it was completely unlicensed, but they kept doing it. So as it became more popular in 1849, Journey into the Gold Diggins by Jeremiah Saddlebags, which was written by James and Donald Reed, was the first American comic book. Okay, and so that's 1849. So good luck collecting that. I hope you can find it.
So I'm a huge Saddleback fan.
Matt goes way back with Saddleback. Yeah, he's totally into it.
Right. Man, try to get that guy's autograph.
I love that. I love like Jeremiah Saddlebags. That's gonna be
Saddlebags. Yes, man. If you could get me a Saddlebags auto, man.
So in this time, we start seeing comics or illustrations being more popular, and we see them published in magazines like a magazine called Puck, like this one. There's one called Judge, Life, and they're usually political, satirical type things talking about the times, but not everyone can afford them. Not everyone could afford magazines. So it was pretty much only for an educated class, a rich class of people who could afford them. But even at this time, look at the illustrations. I mean, not bad, right? This is pretty cool stuff, I think. And this is still between probably early 1900s at this point. So then we jump. So that's pretty much the Victorian age in a nutshell, right? It came over from Europe. Americans liked it. They adopted it. But in the Platinum Age, which I'll go back, is 1882 to 1938. It's the Platinum Age. A lot of people don't talk about it because it just usually starts at the Golden Age. But the Platinum Age was an interesting time. We start seeing
prior to superheroes. So yeah, that's why people don't talk about it.
Well, yeah, there you go. There's that too. But this is an interesting thing because what happened is newspapers at the time, everyone's reporting the news, but the things that made newspapers unique were their editorial columns and their cartoons, their series, their funnies. And so William Randolph Hearst and Joseph Pulitzer, however you want to pronounce it.
Surprise?
Pulitzer Surprise, yeah.
Surprise? Did you say surprise?
Yeah, I did. Shut up. Surprise.
That's good. You continue.
Jerk. But yeah, no, so they were in fierce competition with each other across their two newspaper brands, right? And so the comics were really the thing that was the differentiator. So they started investing a lot of energy into that. And what we start seeing is the funny pages coming to life. We start seeing series of stories that are repeating that you have to come back to the paper to see.
Hey, that guy looks familiar.
Do you know who that is?
No, I was just saying it looks like me.
It does look like you. Oh my God. We got to get you a little nightie.
I need to wear a yellow dress. That's my drinking dress. And then I soil myself. Oh no, it's a bottle. That's my party. That's my party dress.
I'm going to pay for you to have a drinking dress. That'll be great. The fun we'll have. So it started, let's see, you're totally throwing me off, by the way.
Sorry, I know. I'm ruining your mojo. Keep going. Just keep going. Ignore that I say anything. Just work through it.
Yeah, I'll try. Okay, so we start seeing reoccurring characters. This one in 1894 in the New York World by Richard Olcott, who was the first person who published Hogan's Alley, which is a comic series that started happening. And these little like characters started becoming beloved in the time. This particular guy was a street urchin who they named the Yellow Kid because he wore a yellow gown. He used to wear a blue nightgown, but then it switched. But there's a cool story where like Hertz actually went to Olcott and paid him to come over to his paper. And there was this big lawsuit and everything like that. So it's like, again, back in the day, creators, publishers stealing ideas, taking from each other. It's pretty crazy. And also, this is the same, well, around this time, 1896 was the first speech bubble, where it was, where you can see what they're saying. That was the first time that was introduced. And again, in these newspapers. Anything funny to say, Matt?
Nope.
Okay, good. Know your place. No. So Golden Age. So now that's 1938 to 1956. What do we see? The Golden Age, of course, is known for the birth of the superhero. Where did the Golden Age get its name? So it's believed that it was that Richard Lupoff wrote an article called Rebirth, and he published it in issue number 1 of a fanzine comic called Comic Art in April 1960. So again, after the age ended, someone was referring to it as the Golden Age. And others just said that, it emerged organically among fans and historians as they discussed, the evolution of the medium of comic books. But the Golden Age is known for, the birth of iconic superheroes like Superman. We get Batman, Captain America, Wonder Woman. We see very simple, optimistic stories, clear-cut versions of good versus evil. It's not complex. It's that guy is a Nazi, bad. That alien came to Earth. We should stop him. This is where we start seeing the superhero archetype. So all American publications, or DC, right? They created Batman and Robin. We see Wonder Woman, Flash, Green Lantern, Dr. Fate, the Atom, Hawkman, Green Arrow, Aquaman in this time. And of course, Timely Comics, which was the predecessor or previously, was Marvel, became Marvel. We see Human Torch, Submariner, Captain America, and during this time, obviously, there's a lot of patriotism happening. It's during World War II. And it's selling comic books like crazy. Also during this time, we see Dell Comics. We see talking animal comic books, which are starting to sell for the kids. We start seeing Western comics. We see like fantasy comics, like Tarzan emerges at this time.
Well, pulp comics too.
What's that?
Pulp comics too.
pulp comics and stuff like that. The medium is being defined even more, as a comic book. We see the first appearance of Matt. Do you know who's the first appearance in this comic? You probably do.
I think it was Green Lantern, wasn't it?
No. Here's Archie. Archie was.
Oh, yes. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, you're right.
Pep Comics number 22. So we start seeing teen comics and everything like that. So think about this. Like in the beginning of this time, there's no war. There's talk of war. All of a sudden, war happens. There's a mad rush to reuse paper. Men are overseas. Women and children are working in factories. Like there's all these things happening. Patriotism is really important. But post-war, we start seeing something what a lot of historians refer to as the atomic age, right? And the appetite for superheroes really decreased. We start seeing good and evil. Is that even true? After experiencing war, going through depression, going through all these things, it's like the appetite changed.
Well, people were so over the war and everything that had to do with it, and I mean, the people were still coming to terms with it. Even Captain America pivoted to a horror comic for like a couple issues until they're like, this isn't. Let's bring back Cat. Just for right after the war, it went to a horror comic.
Yeah, I mean, like, it shows you that art reflects life, or life reflects art. Like the cultural implications of it were crazy. And I mean, we get these pre-code horror books, which are amazing, right? We see people getting melted from radiation, brains being removed, women being attacked by zombies. It was a crazy time. But at this time, the switch, we start seeing the cancellation of certain superheroes. We see the cancellation of Action Comics, Adventure Comics, Batman, Detective Comics, Superboy, Superman, Wonder Woman, and The World's Finest, right? Those all start getting canceled. And we see the appetite change. We see crime stories. We see horror and detective stories. And I mean, if you look from like right to left, I think one was about marijuana usage. One was about heroin usage, gangsters. And it was because of this that our friend, maybe, in 1954, our friend Frederick Wertham wrote, who was a child psychologist. He wrote a book called The Seduction of the Innocent, which a lot of you collectors know as the SOTI, right? SOTI, which made Congress and the zeitgeist at that time kind of start realizing, like, oh my God, comic books are responsible for the corruption of our youth. Juvenile delinquency is at an all-time high. Which, by the way, later when I was researching this, they said it's not correlated to comic books. Like it's never correlated to video games or whatever. It's actually, in this case, it was correlated to population growth and all the economic issues that were causing crime and delinquency and all that stuff. But the comic publishers in the world said to themselves, we should put out, we should do a code or something like that so that Congress doesn't limit. I mean, you have a government come in and say, you can't do this, this, and this. That's going to be worse. So they actually came together and said, we're going to put out the Comics Code Authority, which guarantees that we're not going to talk about really like kind of issues. And they came up with a whole list of things that they were going to talk about. And that's when we see a shift.
Because of what passed, because of seduction, because of Saudi, was they got those bills passed that essentially banned those comics in a lot of places. They had to pivot to those comics. They were forced to. That's why you saw a big surge. Well, you'll probably hit it. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I was like, that's why you saw a surge of romance comics, like right after Saudi.
Yeah, these publishers are like, well, shoot, what do we do? Like, where do we go? This is a good business for us. We're making money.
What's the opposite of face melting? Face kissing.
Face kissing, melting into each other. Yeah.
Ooh, whoa, hey, that's a different era.
I'll talk about that era. So what's the Silver Age known for? It's the decline of horror, romance, and stuff like that. Romance is still there, but like the decline of the horror and all the detective stuff. Now you start seeing the rebirth of superheroes, right? We start seeing superheroes with real problems, like paying rent, instead of these unstoppable forces. And interestingly enough, in the Golden Age, people got their superpowers by magic, right? Or mysticism. The Silver Age is all about science. You start seeing radioactive spiders, cosmic rays infecting people, because that's, again, life. Like science was taking off in terms of science was taking off. Yeah, forget Galileo and all those other people. Now science was taking off. But science, was becoming think of like the 1930s, 1950s, world fairs. Like, oh my goodness, this is technology and all that stuff. So, where did the name the Silver Age come from? So it's believed that the name it was written by someone submitted a letter. His name was Scott Taylor of West Point, Connecticut. He wrote a letter to one of the columns in Justice League of America, number 42. And I mean, this probably makes it an even more collectible issue, to be honest. And he said in the letter, in his like editorial letter to the editor, excuse me, if you guys keep bringing back those heroes from the 1930s and 40s, golden age, people 20 years from now will be calling this decade the Silver 60s. And so that kind of caught on. But there's also the idea that this started following the natural like Olympic medal schema, which was, gold, silver, bronze. And people just glommed onto it. They were like really comfortable with it. So Silver Age started to replace what they were calling it, which was the second heroic age of comics, or the modern age, ironically, right? Because now modern age. And so it shifted after it was, after it was defined, I guess. Yeah. So yeah. And so what started the Silver Age? I should ask Matt, are there any questions or any things in the comments that you want to?
Nope, everyone's pretty quiet. They're either gone or listening. So it's either one of those two things.
One is good, one is bad. So we'll see.
You either lost everyone or they're just paying attention.
Just talk about modern comics.
You're like, we're here to see Shakers.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. That's why it's a unique format.
Yeah, keep going. Right. They said very interesting. We're all paying attention, listening. Very good so far.
I'm losing confidence.
So you're just entertaining people. They're just hanging on every word. So keep going.
Okay. So the Silver Age, it is typically defined by showcase number 4, which is the arrival of the Flash, Barry Allen, right? And again, this is the relaunch of superheroes. And now all of a sudden, superheroes are kind of coming back because people can't do horror. They can't do all these other things. And they kind of take a little change. They revamp the superheroes. Now, some people say that, Barry Allen wasn't the showcase number 4 wasn't the first superhero. It was actually Martian Manhunter, who predates showcase number 4 in Detective Comics number 225 by almost a year. So in that comic, Martian Manhunter comes up, but he's playing a detective. He doesn't really have superpowers or anything, but he's the Martian Manhunter. So people are like, well, he's a superhero.
I want to hunt me some man.
Hunters.
If anyone's a Teen Titans Go fan.
What kind of fan?
Teen Titans Go.
Oh,
that's what Beast Boy says. He was like, I want to hunt me some man. Sorry. I can't think. That Beast Boy voice just popped in my head.
Whatever pops in your head, just say it. Just go ahead.
I can't. Just push through. Keep going.
Okay. Yeah. I've known you long enough to know that this is how your brain works.
This is fine.
So it's interesting. So people say like, okay, Detective number 225 wasn't a superhero comic, so it wasn't really in the theme of superheroes, but Barry Allen, the Flash, was. So only 3 superheroes were at the start of the Silver Age that had their own titles. That was Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. You had Aquaman and Green Arrow, but they were appearing in like the back of some of these other adventure comics and stuff like that because the creators just loved them. They just didn't want to let them go. But the Silver Age, we start seeing creators like Stan Lee, Gardner Fox, John Broome, Jack Kirby, Gil Kane, Ditko, Buscema, Romita Sr., and these all people who we'll talk about, but we all know and love. Also in the Silver Age, we start seeing more kid comics coming out. We're seeing like Harvey Comics putting out Richie Rich, Casper the Friendly Ghost, Little Dot. We're seeing underground comics making an emergence, and we start seeing like Robert, legends like Robert Crumb, Gilbert Shelton, coming up with these other kind of pulpy kind of comics. This is what you're referring to, right, Matt? To some extent, the pulp.
No, pulp comics were the action, books of Golden Age. The pulp comics are digest sized, and they were full of like swashbucklers and it was
all the fun stuff. Gotcha.
Yeah. Adventure, usually specific adventure based comics.
Then I retract what I said.
No, but I'm a huge fan of underground comics. That that changed the way that comics were published in a big way. But that we could save that for a different day.
No, it's I remember you wrote once in one of the Shaker reports a while ago about Robert Crumb and his impact on comics.
Well, everyone, DiCaprio's dad had a huge impact here, distributing independent comics through the country. Leonardo DiCaprio's dad was a really big part of the underground movement. Underground, it wouldn't have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles without Crumb and what all these like people were just printing things in their garage and selling them to people on the street. I mean, it was just such a weird concept that I'm like, I'll just do it myself. And yeah, that was fascinating. I mean, we could go into underground comics on a whole show.
No, I mean it is fascinating. But this age, like had the opportunity for that because this is also 1960s. This is the hippie movements. These are like there's a lot of stuff happening. It's a crazy time in America. Yeah. But of course, one of the things that the Silver Age is best known for is the amazing team up of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. And I mean, out of this, we got introduced a lot of really cool superheroes. We get, Spider-Man, Avengers, X-Men. And these are lighthearted stories, fun, original characters. But the cool thing is these people have problems like paying rent. These people have problems like, standing out, not standing in, standing out, not fitting in, and all that kind of stuff. And it was interesting that during this time, DC established that the characters from the Golden Age lived in a different parallel universe, Earth 2, right? Where we're like, I think in Earth 1. And that allowed them to redefine these characters. They didn't have to, they basically retconned them or like said, okay, we're going to start over again.
They weren't defined to our history.
Right. Yeah. But this is a theme that we see across the ages, which I think is an important factor in determining an age, because one of them is like, there's an event in comics usually that says, okay, everything before this is no longer counted, right? Everything before that, like, let's change it. Now that's a different world. That's a parallel universe. That's a whatever. And we'll see more of that in a second. Also, like I was talking about with Hearst and Pulitzer, like there's fierce competition between the publishers, and they're copying each other. You always wonder why the Submariner and Aquaman, and there's a Human Torch and a
Human Torch and a Human Torch.
Yeah, I was gonna say Human Torch.
Same publisher. Same
publisher. But there's a lot of competition. In fact, it was accumulated when DC started publishing Justice League of America, right? And it was funny. Timely Comics or Marvel, right, asked Stan Lee to create something in response to this. Matt, I'm going to test you. Do you know what he had to create? He was asked to create in response to this team up, this human team.
I do. The Fantastic Four.
That wasn't even staged, folks. He knew it. Yeah. And so basically, he created this team because he was told to by his boss to sell more comics, which it's interesting, right? Because there's the side of the fan, there's the side of the business, there's the side of culture happening. So it's really crazy. Now, this kind of leads to the Bronze Age, right? Where stories get a little bit more realistic. So where did the Silver Age end before we get into the Bronze Age? So one historian by the name of Will Jacobs suggests the Silver Age ended in April of 1970 when the Green Lantern was handed over to a new creative team, Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams, in response to reduced sales, right? So again, people like times are changing. People are getting grittier. 1970 to 1985. I mean, this is, after Vietnam. This is after, the hippies and all these different movements happening. Another historian also connects it to the Green Lantern. And he says this. He says in 1960, the character embodied a can-do optimism of the era. And he quotes Green Lantern. He says, quote, Green Lantern, this is in 1972, they wrote in Green Lantern, "Those days are gone forever. The days I was confident, certain. I was so young, so sure. I couldn't make a mistake. Young and cocky. That was Green Lantern. Well, I've changed. I'm older now, maybe wiser too, and a lot less happy." Right? Like that, like embodied the Bronze Age. And it was also another marker of this age was Jack Kirby left Marvel in 1970, which kind of puts an end to that creative team, changing it forever. So how did it start? So that was when it kind of ended. And a lot of people say it started with the death of Gwen Stacy. One scholar in 1973 said, his name was Bloomberg, he said the era of innocence ended not with a bang, but with a snap heard around the comic book world. Creepy. Because I guess you guys all know the story, right? Green Goblin throws Gwen Stacy off the Brooklyn Bridge, I think. Peter Parker, Spider-Man tries to save her. His webbing grabs her at the last second, but because of him, because of the way he pulled or whatever, he snaps her neck. I mean, a freaking death of the main character's girlfriend, a death, everyone's mind's exploding. But it really kind of encapsulated the times. Matt, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Nope.
You always get me off guard because I think you're going to add something, and then fair enough. All right, and so this is also in the Bronze Age. We start seeing new publication distribution methods. We see the first newsstand comics coming out, and interestingly, we talked about like underground comics. Small print publishers were able to enter the market because of this distinction. They could actually publish, instead of like these massive print runs that cost a ton of money, they could publish directly to a comic book shop, right?
Well, the introduction of a direct edition, because everything was newsstand back in the day.
Back in the day, yeah. But that's why
and then there were shops opening, which brought in the direct editions. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. And so we start seeing this differentiation. And as we know, as collectors, I mean, there's a big difference between, I never would have guessed this. I never would have guessed collecting comics when I was younger, that a newsstand would be worth more potentially than a direct edition, just because it was rarer, just because it was on different paper sometimes, just because it was ripped up and put into news racks. So,
I just didn't like that line across the barcode. I was like, ew.
I know, it felt like FU, to collectors.
And then I wanted the one with the Spidey head. Like if it was Marvel, I'm like, I don't want the barcode. I want the Spidey head.
I felt the same way. So we also see in the Bronze Age a revision of so in 1971, the Comics Code starts getting revised to be more reflective, and that loosening of the so people are like, did it go away? All the research, I don't, maybe Matt, maybe you have the answer, but like I couldn't find anything really that suggested that it just went away. It slowly revised. It got changed. We start seeing. What's that?
What went away?
The Comic Code.
Oh, the Comic Code. No, it didn't go away until the mid 2000s. Was when people were just like, why are we adhering to this thing that just doesn't have any place in today's market? But it was still around for into the 2000s.
So we see creators starting to push the limits a little bit. We see now monsters coming back. We see Dracula. We see Swamp Thing. We see Ghost Rider. And one thing a friend of ours, Rand Lob from Definitive Films, said, this was an interesting thing because this was a representation of certain types of themes. Dracula was all about sexuality and seduction, a blood, disease that you can get by biting and all that stuff. Swamp Thing represented like ecology and awareness of the environment. And of course, like Ghost Rider was like Hell's Angels,
flames and motorcycles,
flames and motorcycles, and
fire and motorcycles. That's
what he represented.
Skulls.
But it was the angst. It was the rebel without a cause. It was like that.
It was the punk era. Yeah.
We also see, some crazy stories about drug use. Interestingly, so the Comics Code was still there, and then Stan Lee wanted to do a mini series within Spider-Man about someone doing drugs, and it was a "don't do drugs" message, right? And they told him you couldn't do it, right? The Comics Code, and he said, I'm going to do it anyway, which was pretty badass because Stan Lee, I know, pushed the limits in terms of like going to college campuses and like talking about like Doctor Strange and like kind of LSD, mushrooms, like expansion of consciousness. He was always doing like different, like the X-Men were like a minority group that was, misunderstood, but meant good. Like he was always trying to push this kind of like social agenda, right? Anyway, and so because he did it without permission and it was a success, other people said, oh, we can do it as well. So we start seeing poor Speedy gets hooked on heroin. It sucks. And Iron Man, of course, with his alcoholism and Demon in a Bottle. This is, the time where we start seeing female empowerment, right? So think about what's happening in the world at this time, right? The end of the Vietnam War, people are coming home with addictions. We see the hippie movement happening. Things are getting more real. But this time we start seeing more female empowerment. We see female versions of popular characters like Spider-Woman, Red Sonja, Miss Marvel, She-Hulk. We see the rise of minority superheroes like Black Panther, Falcon, Luke Cage, Blade, Storm, Shang-Chi, Jon Stewart, Vixen. And of course, interestingly enough, we start seeing Jewish superheroes, right? Like Religion, Kitty Pryde, Moon Knight. So this was an era of like expansion of the characters, depth of character. Okay, so the Bronze Age ends in 1985 with DC's Crisis on Infinite Earths. It was interesting. So this was what bridged the two ages, basically, like the Golden Age, the Silver Age, and the Bronze Age. Right? It was it revitalized sales for the company, for DC, which was competing against Marvel. It was a huge success, and it resulted in the cancellation of The Flash. Again, it started with The Flash, it ends with The Flash, because now Barry Allen, spoiler, dies. I believe Supergirl dies, right? And we see the cancellation of The Flash, Superman with issue 423, Wonder Woman with issue 329. And as a result of that, we see new, I don't think retcon's the right word, but new characters. We get Wally West as the Flash, a brand new Superman series, a brand new Wonder Woman series. Batman gets a whole new style with, I think it was Frank Miller's Batman Year One, right? Totally different origin story, totally different, like, new thing of how he became who he was. And during this time, Marvel, of course, competing closely with DC and them inspiring and, let's say, even making each other better, creates the crossover Secret Wars in 1985. Which led to the cancellation of the Defenders and Power Man and Iron Fist. And it launched a whole new universe and X Factor and all those X-Men franchises, which, by the way, was Marvel's most popular title at that time. So they start branching out. So let's recap. We talked about the Golden Age, the Silver Age, the Bronze Age. Now, a lot of people stop there and say, great, now we're in the modern age after that. However, there's a lot of other historians will say, well, actually, there's the Copper Age, the Chrome Age. And I believe they're worth merit, so we'll get into those. And before I do, Matt, how are we doing? Is everyone still there?
We're good. We got 32 watching, and I think people are still paying attention.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. Hopefully this is interesting to you. I had a lot of fun researching this because I didn't know half of this stuff. And I was walking around San Diego and I'm like, oh my God, there's Showcase 4. That was there's Neil Adams. Oh yeah, I see that. Like it really kind of broadened my perspective, which I thought was pretty cool.
I don't know Carl Choi, but he says, what's up?
What's up? So, well, now you do know him, Matt.
Now we do. What's up, Carl?
So let's talk about the Copper Age, 1986 to 1992. So according to Sean O'Rourke from Pop Matters, he said that this age is all about deconstructive and dystopian re-envisioning of iconic characters and the worlds that they lived in. So again, you're seeing this trend. Things are getting grittier and crazier. We see, this is all typified by like Frank Miller's, Dark Knight, Batman: The Dark Knight Returns in 1986, Alan Moore's and Dave Gibbons' Watchmen in 1986. So, again, adult-oriented.
Darkwing, let's get serious. Oh no, he says dangerous. Let's get dangerous. Sorry,
serious, Matt.
Let's get dangerous. But this was a serious time for comics.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, we see a reorganization of the distribution system. Like, again, more independent comics. We see images like Spawn, Savage Dragon, and all these kind of things starting to come out, and we'll talk about that in a second. But let's jump into this. So, the other thing I was going to say, interestingly enough, about Batman, like this is kind of crazy. Like when you think about it, in the Golden Age and the Silver Age, there was a lot of hecticness and stuff. You didn't really have people who were reading comics who then created comics. People were like artists were being hired and storytellers were being hired to create these cool stories. The Bronze Age and the Copper Age, you start seeing, and the Chrome Age, you start seeing for the first time in history, people who grew up on comics, writing comics for characters that they loved, and they start pushing the limits because it's like, well, why wouldn't Batman maybe kill somebody? Or why wouldn't, for like the Watchmen, like what happens if there's a nuclear war? What would happen to these superheroes? You start seeing this amazing storytelling from people who grew up in the medium. So it was really cool to see that kind of like that shift in the
Well,
history.
and one really important thing that happened in 86, so it was 1 year like after all this, was the very first variant on Man of Steel #1. So 86 was, was pretty much prime not copper. What did you say? Yeah, is it copper?
Copper, yeah.
Yeah, copper. I mean, that the first variant really changed the game for stores. The fact that you can now that you could sell 2 covers for 1 book was, I mean, it kind of just opened the door for now the world that we live in now.
Yeah, we'll talk about that for sure. Like, why is this sometimes called the variant age? Like, there's a lot of reasons, and it's usually from a business and a publication standpoint. But we'll get into that. Copper Age, we start seeing a shift, right? We start seeing violent, heroes, anti-heroes. We see Wolverine gaining in a ton of popularity. The Punisher, this guy from Vietnam who came back and is trying to avenge his family and stop crime, but he's killing people. He's doing all these crazy things.
You said the Bronze Age. I said copper. I meant bronze. Yes, thank you. Yeah,
bronze.
I was like, now I have all this metal stuck in my head, and I was like, bronze, copper, what?
So, yeah, no worries. And so now we move on to the Chrome Age, right? Now I didn't realize this, but this is probably my favorite age because there's some crazy stuff that happens, right? So how did the Copper Age end? Well, the death of Superman, right? That kind of ushered into this new Chrome Age, because I'll tell you why in a second. Jim Lee leaving X-Men, this massive franchise happens in the Chrome Age. The birth of Image Comics. There's so many things, and we'll get into them forever. But these were really, really formative years for what we know. A lot of us came into comics around this time, I think. Maybe I'm dating myself, but we all remember the how big of an event the death of Superman was. It sold over 6 million comics. Imagine that. Imagine one issue selling 6 million. It made them what, like $18 million or whatever the price was on the comic book at that time. In one issue. It brought in people, speculators. This is around .com era, right? This is when you're getting your e-toys, your eBays, your e-whatevers. All these businesses, there's money around, and they start seeing they start realizing that comic books could be something on speculation that you can speculate on. So this is basically the start of the speculation market. Matt, would you agree?
It definitely was. I mean, people were trying to. I mean, I was one of them. I had my parents pick me up a copy for $20 that was in New York. Like, yeah, so I was definitely one of those kids that needed one. I had to have one.
My dear cousin Wayne, who I only see once a decade, we were friends when we were kids, and then we grew apart. He got me a copy, and he just gave it to me, and I was just like, "What is this? A comic book?" And it was Death of Superman. And of course, I opened it right up, read it 1,000 times, and made a mess of it. Wore the armband that came with it, but it was really one of my first introductions into comics, and it was like insane. But again, they're killing an icon. But this signaled to everybody that comics can be event-driven. There could be comic events that drive sales. So in this time frame, the Chrome Age, we see Batman getting his back broken by this unknown character, Bane. We find out that Spider-Man was a clone for 20 years, a stab in the heart to everybody. So it's a really interesting, formative time. But again, it's all around the publishers starting to realize, like, okay, wait, well, what will get people to buy our comics? What can we do? And again, this isn't anything new. This is the classic business aspect pushing the art and making it better, to some extent, but challenging it. Like any business, you go to Starbucks and Coffee Bean, they're going to try different Frappuccino, flavors to get you in there. But again, they're thinking, wow, Death of Superman made $18 million or whatever. What happens if we kill Batman or break his back? What happens if? So they start trying all these things. It's an experimental time in the industry. We start seeing a darker shift into our anti-heroes, right? Spawn, for example, and again, this is comic book readers creating comic book characters, right? People who grew up on the medium. Some would say, Spawn is a reimagining of Spider-Man if he killed, right? And he patrols this one little alley, this one area. Cable is kind of like a gun-toting Captain America that's like roided out with all the bandoliers and guns. We see Venom, who is
Pockets,
like
lots of pockets.
Lots of pockets. Lots of pockets. Man, I wish I could do a faux hawk like that. That'd be cool. Maybe. Venom, who is kind of like, an extreme punisher. He doesn't just kill you, he eats you, right? We start seeing a shift in villains. Villains aren't just bad, they're misunderstood, right? For the first time. Magneto is fighting for his brotherhood, for mutants who are this group of people who are being attacked and abused by the government, and Sentinel are being created. Galactus isn't just coming to eat Earth. He's actually part of a celestial plan to help balance the universe. The Joker, he's still pretty psychotic, but the Joker that's he just stays there. No, but instead of just being like, we don't understand his reasoning, the Joker, he's portrayed less as a criminal and more of like a mentally ill psychopath who can't control his actions, right? But of course, in the Chrome Age, we have Chrome. Oh, gold. We see holograms for the first time, and everyone's mind is blown. Like, is that Gambit throwing cards? Yeah, Gambit's throwing cards right off the pages. We start seeing variants with different gold foils, embossed covers, different versions of comic books based on like reprints, things like that. It is a crazy effing time, but it's all marketing. It's all like, will this work? And it does. It does spectacularly. Matt, did you have anything to say?
No, I'm just responding. Jackass is Jack Borges ass. Jackass is not a good combination. Jack Borges ass, is your comic book ages list posted anywhere on the CD site? No, we're going to turn this into an article, so this will live there. But we'll do that next week.
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to showcase this around, get people's feedback, and then we're going to, for probably the rest of the year, and then we're going to come up with some more stuff, and we're going to find out how should we name these, because if we name it and we adopt it on Cover Price, which we probably will, it's going to help with organization. But what we really want to do is like, well, what if we name this, and what if other people believe in it and adopt it? That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, Chris asked, is Chrome what was decided? I think that was my recommendation when you pitched it, is what he said. So,
yeah, I mean, I don't think anything's decided just yet. But we will get to that.
We're presenting it as
yeah. All right. So I'm coming close to the hour. I'm probably going to go over. I hope it's okay with everybody. Feel free to bounce if you need to, right? But the giveaway is going to happen at the end of this. Captive audience. Okay. So what happens during this time? We start seeing, because of this mad rush towards like, how can we make more money off of a single story? Variant covers. How can we literally grab people's attention as they walk into a comic shop? At this time, comic book shops are saying like, stop. We don't have enough shelf space for all this stuff. Stop. But there's this massive competition. We see trading cards, limited editions, poly bags, special variant covers. All these different things start coming into place. The first foil stamped cover was the third volume of Silver Surfer in issue number 50 in 1991. We see the first glow-in-the-dark covers in Ghost Rider, Volume 3, issue number 15. So again, led to a market boom. Retailer shops and publishers are making huge profits on these expanded titles. So everyone's happy. So much money's around that independent, the images formed. All these, you guys all know the story. But you get, Jim Lee, Todd McFarlane, Rob and Eric and Mark and Jim. They all decide to get paid for and own the creative rights to their creations, and so they leave Marvel, right? And they set up Image, and they are like rock stars. I know, Matt, you tell this story all the time, but like, they're like rock stars. They're pulling up to restaurants. People are asking for autographs. You're not even a movie star, and people know who you are. You're a comic book artist, which is insane, right? And so super big recognition.
It was the first time that creators were kind of like known for being creators of comics. Like it wasn't a thing before this happened. Although, I mean, Jim Lee was popular, but like heck, Rob was in a Levi's commercial, so it was a thing.
And so, and but what happened is, this is kind of interesting. You start seeing flashy characters with no substance, right? What happens when, and I mean, eventually, you get Spawn and like great stories and stuff like that, but you get what happens when you take a bunch of creators and artists with no project managers, no editors, really? You know, I mean, they had all those things, but like it's focused on the art. You get a lot of cool experimentation, but some would say that it's like a little bit softer. There's a story is gone. You don't have, you know, Alan Moore. You don't have like these guys writing, right? That are just massive like novels. So it's all flashy. And some would say, some people have singled out Image for contributing to the conditions which led to the spectacular market crashing because of all these foils and all these kind of like, you know, throwaway comics in a sense, right? I don't think they'd appreciate me saying throwaway comics because they weren't. They were great comics. I have all of those, but it was part of the times. So in 1993, Marvel files for bankruptcy. They knew some shit was going down when Adventures of Superman number 500, which was Superman's return, sold less than The Death of Superman. Everyone started getting nervous. The resulting crash devastated the industry. Sales plummeted. Retailer stores are closing. Publishers are downsizing. At this time, Marvel goes, "Hey, what we should do, because everything's great, we should buy a distribution arm called Heroes World Distribution," and they wanted to use it as their exclusive distributor, and so they control more of the market. This resulted in both distribution problems for Marvel and the entire industry. And a lot of major publishers started having problems and couldn't do it. And so this led to the rise of Diamond Comics, Diamond Comic distributors. And they kind of took the monopoly for a number of years because they just filled that void. And it was like perfect timing, right? So Marvel files for bankruptcy in 1996. I stand corrected. The crash happened in 1993. And around this time in 1995, eBay launches, right? This is so there's all this confusing stuff happening, like the bubble of the dot-com bubble is happening. And Matt and I argue in different presentations that the speculation crash of that time was only really, like, comics were only really saved by the aftermarket, by you guys buying these comics and reselling them and loving them. And eBay created a forum for that. eBay was the first time that you don't have to be a comic distributor or a retailer. You don't have to be a comic guy to sell. Anybody could buy comics now, right? And what even happened in 2000 was the grading companies started happening. CGC launches in 2000. And for the first time, you know, how do I feel comfortable transacting online in this new medium called the internet, on this new site called the eBay, on my MySpace page or my Friendster's page or whatever it was during that time? You know, how do I feel comfortable? Oh, this third-party agency says that this comic is a 9.8. Great. Now there's trust. So it was like perfect timing. All these, you know, maybe it wasn't just serendipitous. These are great businesses who like looked at it and saw the need for it. But the aftermarket is born, right, in the Chrome Age. Matt, did you have something to say?
No, it was, you know, the one thing I always lean into on how vital the Ultimate Universe was in saving comics.
Oh, I'm going to get to that in a second.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll get to that. So I'll go a little bit faster. So this is the time when we start seeing like the movies from 2000, 2006, where you start seeing that comic book movies. X-Men in 2000 blew open the doors. I was in Alaska when I saw that. I called Matt and we talked about it for hours. I drove a motorcycle to a little tiny movie theater in Soldotna, Alaska. And
Frederick said that like after the bankruptcy is when they sold all their characters off to a different property. So you said that. Okay.
No, I didn't. But that's a good point. Yeah, thank you. And to make money, right, you get Spider-Man going to Sony and X-Men to Fox and stuff like that, right? So you have like this, like, oh shit, we're in trouble. But because of that move, you get these one-off like universes, the X-Men, who never know about anybody else, and it's a cool movie, but they're in their own little universe. Versions of Spider-Man, all the different versions. You know, you got Ben Affleck as Daredevil. You know, all these different things. Hellboy, which was a great movie. Okay, so here we get into the survey data. So what should we really do from 2008 to present, right? If we consider up to 2008 the Chrome Age, not saying we do, but just saying that's what historians and everyone's kind of calling it at the moment. So here's, a lot of you did the survey and I appreciate it. You know, thank you for taking the time. We had, like I said, 2,600 people do it. So let's see, the vast majority of people believe, so is it time for us to rename the eras or to break up the modern age? So 83% of people said, yeah, I think the modern age needs to be broken up into smaller time frames. So there's an appetite for this. if we were to break up the modern age, how many distinct time frames? So most people said, yeah, 20 years feels good. But a lot of people wrote in and said, you know what, like, I don't think you can just arbitrarily put a cap on the time frame. You can't say this is going to be a 10-year, because too many things happen. It has to be driven. So there's another thing to consider is it's not really just like a 20-year kind of thing. It has to be driven on culture and what's happening in the industry. So that was kind of an interesting insight. But a lot of people said like 20 years feels like a good kind of round number. So
I mean, the one thing that we learned that it was, as you're bringing up here, that it was more cemented by events.
Yes. Yeah. And creative teams turning over, new feelings happening. But mostly, yeah, there's events that really kind of sit with the community and go, yeah, that happened. So arrival of the, so I'm going to read through these. So a lot has happened in comics. Here are some things. What do you think were the most kind of important things is this question. And what we saw, again, this is just kind of getting a feel. I think there's a lot, we have to put out another survey and get a better perspective because a lot has happened. But in this list, top from bottom, from like most selected, was the arrival of movies and TV content at 55%, then the formation of grading companies, then the formation of Image, then the formation of the aftermarket, cover collecting, COVID, and then the bankruptcy of Marvel. So again, we're getting a sense from you guys, like, you know, it sounds like the movies were kind of the biggest one, but again, it's not really conclusive. I think there's a lot of stuff that happened, and this doesn't even capture all of them. A lot of people wrote in also and said, like, you know, Ultimate Fallout 4 was a good representation of like, you know, different minority groups, you know, getting the limelight, finally being represented as characters with power and characters who are the leads. I'm going to give a shout out to, I think, Daniel Ayad Hall, who said that. And yeah, so identification of different, another one, Christian Hulse said identification of introduction of the diversification of into comics. So that could be another huge event that happened. And I think, Matt, you wanted to talk about that in a second, but we'll get to the ultimate line in a sec. The other question we asked, you know, from the potential list of names, which names would you feel best describe the modern age? Again, I think we need to do another survey to really refine this. But most people said, of the options given, 52% said the foil age. Then we had the chrome age, the independent age.
52 said the variant age. Yeah.
What did I say?
Foil age.
Oh, I'm sorry. Why did I? Oh, sorry. Variant age, chrome age, independent age, grading age, foil age, and then artist age, right? But again, we see that whole idea of movies, of variant, stuff like that happening. So how important is it that we keep the metal theme? Now, I feel like a big dummy because I didn't mean to include a 0 in my little beautiful Likert scale here. It was supposed to be 1 through 7, and I looked after it was running. I was like, oh man. But so I did the analysis a little differently. I just took the bottom 4 and compared it to the top 4, right? Because that was sentiment of not at all important, very important, right? And so what we see is most people, interesting, a lot of people said 0, which was like not at all important. But overall, the trend was 10% in favor of keeping the metal distinction or the theme. So again, there's kind of a love of like, well, it's a hierarchy. We know what it is. Maybe we should keep the metal theme. So there's a little trend that way. So
good luck, people of the future, trying to find more metals.
Yeah, seriously. But we come up with some pretty cool ones, I think. We'll talk about that in a second. Okay, so why is this important? Again, I think any industry needs identification and classification to best talk about those things. As speculators, as collectors, as people who love this stuff, it'd be really cool to be able to narrow it down and say this is from the blank age and have people know what you're talking about. Plus, it's kind of cool. It's like a little insider information. Like when you know the ages, you're like, that led to this, which led to this, which led to that. So, all right. So and again, I apologize for going over. Hopefully you guys are still interested, and hopefully this is still cool. But this is even going to get crazier.
We have 2 people watching. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding.
You just deflated me. Wah, wah, wah.
42 people, so it has grown.
Okay.
If we just keep talking, more and more people will join. So
everyone's like, is the giveaway happening?
Right.
Coming towards the end.
How many hats were handed out? That's what Chudry said.
Dude, nobody tackled Matt. No one tackled him, so no.
Yeah, because I wasn't there, so
Yeah,
that's a little hard to. Yeah.
last second, Matt had some family stuff, so he couldn't make it. But
Yeah.
I handed out at the panel. I handed out literally like probably 30 shirts and about 15 hats. So
So just show up in person. We'll give you stuff.
So let's talk about what's going on in the modern age, if we consider copper and chrome, right? The modern age, 2008. So so 2008, so a little movie starts getting really popular, Iron Man. Huge hit. The birth of the MCU was born. They didn't know they had a success. They weren't planning on all this stuff, but it was such a big success. And with really good, I think, leadership, they started connecting all the comic books titles. Again, you got comic book fans creating comic book content, and they're doing it right for the first time. You're not seeing like a campy version of Batman. You're not seeing a campy version of Iron Man or whatever. You're seeing like what we want, what the fans really want. The success at the box.
Hey, that was a Spice Girls quote. Well, what they want, what they really want.
So show me what you. I guess it is the 90s in our time frame, so it's relevant. Thank you for that. So Marvel's success at the box office even changed the way Marvel produces comics. Right, we start seeing people creating comics to be made into movies, or characters being introduced, and like there's cross medium stuff happening for the first time. So yeah, a lot of comics are like tie-ins to the movies. So, and then Marvel's purchased by Disney late in this decade as well, which is again a major transaction or a transition in the industry. We see another retconning happening. The New 52, a reboot. So Flashpoint happens, right? And now it's an opportunity. Again, remember I said there's trends we're seeing across 189 years of comics or whatever. Like, we're starting to see like every age has this kind of time where the new creative team comes in. Sales are dipping. What can publishers do? I got it. Why don't we revamp these to be a little bit more modern? And so the New 52 attempted to do that, right? Just as Crisis on Infinite Earth did 30 years before. They're dispensing with all these convoluted and unwanted characters and chronologies and stuff like that. And it's hard to argue that the New 52 doesn't really signal a shift, in this era. We also get Ultimate Fallout. Boom. See, I told you I'd talk about it. Ultimate Fallout came out in 2001 and ended basically with the Ultimate Universe started in 2001 and ended with Ultimate Fallout in 2011. And out of this, we get Miles Morales, one of the most popular characters that we track at Cover Price all the time. I mean, that variant or the first issue, right, is insane. Not this one, but
it's so funny how what this book did. It both simultaneously launched Miles, right, and completely destroyed the Ultimate Universe. Because once they killed that Spider-Man, I guess what's the term they used in Deadpool? That's the Ultimate Spider-Man was the Ultimate Universe's anchor for sure. It's a term they brought. I don't know if you saw Deadpool yet, John. But the term anchor beam is being thrown around now. And that really was. Once they killed off that Spider-Man, people are like out. But then Miles was like still around and growing in popularity.
I mean, so there's huge shifts, I think, in the undefined age, right? 2008 moving forward. We start seeing the rise of streamers. The internet is really taking hold. This is 2000, right? And people are like, oh yeah. And in 2007, we see Netflix go from DVDs to actually streaming, followed by Disney in 2019, followed by Hulu in 2008. Before that, in 2006, actually, Amazon Prime launches, then HBO Go in 2010, and then Disney Plus in 2019. But now it's like we're consuming our favorite stories, our content across all these different mediums, right? And in my opinion, I mean, 2019, when Endgame comes out, I remember sitting next to Matt in the theater and just like silence in Infinity Wars, right? When everyone's blipped out of existence, and Endgame was such a thematic thing. Like that was the third, phase of the MCU.
The pure fanfare glee in Endgame was awesome.
So if we think of this time as like expanding beyond comics into content, comic content, which you go to a con or anything like that, you're going to see like all of these, fan favorite kind of stuff. I mean, that's what the community, in my opinion, like is really now about. It wasn't just because it was comic books that you can read. It's now about like characters and stories that you can see in all these different ways. And yes, it always comes back to comics because that's a great medium to share that story with relatively low overhead. But that's the genesis or the origin of these stories, right? And so in my opinion, like, phase 3, this is, phase 4, of Marvel, it starts getting a little discombobulated. We see a little too much. We see a little too softening of all these different things. We get She-Hulk. We get, what else came out? The Marvels or Miss Marvel and like, stuff like that. That's fun and really cool, but it's not like tied together. They're just kind of one-offs. The other thing that happens, so one thing you can do at Cover Price is any one of you could go to our website, go to the new release page, and see that little blue toggle in the top left called variants. You can turn that on. And we have an archive. If you're a premium member, you can go back multiple years. So at 2019, I said, let's talk about like what's happening 2019 to now. In 2019, I took that and I looked at January and I said, how many standard covers came out across the entire month and how many variants, how many of those were variants across the entire month? And then I went to 2024 and I did that month. So year over year review from January 2019 and then January 2024. And this is what I found. In January 2019, there was 108, on average, 108 standard covers, right, each week. And of that, 185 were variants. So already a big saturation of variants, more variants than standard covers, which is nuts, right? So that means there was about, 293 comics per week coming out with a standard, a standard cover to variant ratio of 1.7. Now in January 2024, standard covers went down by 42%. So each week on average in January, you had about 76 standard covers and 280 variants, an explosion, 51% up, right? So that's an average of about 356 comics per week with the standard to variant ratio 3.7.
So more books, but less individual stories.
More, one story, multiple variants, multiple ways to sell it. Because
this is like per week.
Yeah, right. So per week. So, I mean, there's some, I want to be transparent. There's some probably flaws with this as well, because as Cover Price grew, we have better team members putting in more comics and stuff like that. That could be an outlier or a factor. But you can't deny, that's a pretty stark difference. Pretty stark.
Well, one notable factor was that Image Comics had a no variant rule pre-COVID. So pre-COVID, there was it was just for a couple of years. I forget the exact time frame, but during that time, I think 2019, Image had a no variant rule. Where now that's obviously not the case. Now every book can have as many as they want. So that really definitely had a massive impact on this massive growth. And store exclusives. I mean, store exclusives are. It all started with John Tyler Christopher's variant for Star Wars when he did the Boba Fett action figure. What's that?
The negative space or the action figure?
No, when he did the Boba Fett action figure, he was the first creator to sell his own book in his own platform, and people thought he was crazy for doing it.
That's right. Yeah.
And then it just changed the game completely. Yeah.
I mean, you're looking at different.
Jonathan JD said half of those 280 variants were TM and T variant. You're not wrong. You're probably right.
Or something's
don't forget.
Or
don't forget Kickstarter, self-publishing, and AI. Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of variants everywhere.
But think about how variants work, right? I mean, a storyline standard cover might have a B cover, C cover, right? But then you go, as a gift to the retailers. We were in the Diamond Retailer panel back when we first started Cover Price, and it was crazy. The publishers were all sitting there and we're talking to the retailers. And I was looking around the room, and the retailers are kind of meh, whatever. That's their business. They're into it. And I looked around, and The only thing that made everyone in the room cheer was when someone said, I think it was Titan, I think, said like, we now, if anything you order that you don't sell, you send back to us. And everyone's like, oh my God, so the variant was a gift. The ratio variant was a gift to retailers, helping them stay in business, helping them, make money, because it's hard.
The variant was never intended for fans. It was never intended for people to have something they could flip in the aftermarket. It was literally intended for stores to order more and to offer a book that they can sell for a little bit extra over the normal book.
But it's interesting because it then became something fans loved because it became harder to find, and it pushed, so it's like, it was again, it was industry pushing our medium because they wanted to make more money. But of course, who doesn't, right? And so it was like, it was this beautiful kind of thing in a sense. Now, of course, there's all this, negative sentiment around variants because it's kind of like, well, is it even, it's devaluing my comic because now you have, like you said, a billion TMNTs coming out, right? And all these different variants. Which one should I get? But again, you have the standard cover, AB, you have ratio, you have retailer exclusives, you have limited stuff, right? Then you have, and the way that all works is, you have to petition that from the industry, from the publisher. You have to be paired with an artist. They to get a certain print run, they sell it. And if you purchase, for example, I think in Marvel or DC, maybe DC, you get the trade dress if you purchase so many. If you purchase even more and you commit to more, you get the Virgin. If you
Marvel is 3,000 minimum, but you have the choice to split that into whatever, if you want Virgin, or if you all want it to be one cover, or if you want to split it into Virgin and trade dress.
So think about that. Like, the publishers are making incentives for their retailers to purchase more. And because we, the aftermarket, and we, the buyers, realize that those will be worth more because there's limited versions of them, it's the cycle. So yeah, the variant, for better or for worse, sustains, I think, the aftermarket. It makes it kind of more interesting. It makes the hunt even better for the modern times. This is my editorial. I don't know if it's true or not.
My actual mode of thinking when I was heavily buying in the 2000 to 2010 range was I could buy the regular issue for $4 or the 1 in 10, 1 in 15, sometimes for $10. So spending an extra $6, I would get a quote rare book. And so I would spend that a little bit extra to have that rare book and with a cover that I probably liked a little bit more. And that was my mode of thought. Not that I was like, I'm going to make $20 in the aftermarket today. It was just like, oh, this is probably a better, somewhat better investment. And I just like the cover more.
Dude, when you were collecting those and you'd show me them, I'm like, that's that comic? Like, I didn't even dawn on me what a variant was back in the day. Like, I was just kind of like, well, I got the one that was on the shelf. And you're like, go behind it. Look at the, I'm like, oh, that's the same. Like, the concept, I didn't even know how you were getting those. I was like, are you like magic? What's going on?
Well, back in the day, like before Dynamite was a publisher, there was Dynamic Forces, which was one of the few companies that was doing store exclusives. And before there was the internet, you know those Scholastic newspaper ads that you would get in school, and you would choose the books, and they have a little order number and the price.
Yeah,
they had those around, those little paper order forms where you can order variants off of this paper form. And then you would basically send in the order. I remember someone showing me for the glow in the dark cover for the Max, and I was like super jealous that he was ordering one of those. Yeah,
that was crazy. So so let's finish this up. So should we redefine the age? So what we know for certain, just as a recap, ages aren't defined when you're in them. I can't say like we're in the modern age and now we're going to call it like, it's hard to define it when you're in it. So we should probably think about the, Bronze Age, the Copper Age, the Chrome Age, and that post-Copper Age up until maybe somewhat recent future. But we don't know what's happening in the world, right? So it's like there's still a modern age. It just shifts. Usually they're used by fans and industry to categorize their comic books and create a hierarchy or a categorization scheme so that we can actually find things and talk about things in meaningful ways. There's a general consensus that the naming convention should continue to be metal, but there's no hard rule or authority on this. It's the Wild West. Anything we decide, there's no comic book police that are going to get us. Just the internet's coming at us. One thing that's also interesting across all the ages is that competition between publishers, distributors, and even collectors, competition trying to get a comic, maybe capitalism even, was a motivating factor that kept shaking things up and creating these really cool cultural and comic book events. Reboots is a theme. A lot of times every 20 years or so, 15 years, a creative team comes in and says, okay, it's too complex. We got out of hand. And maybe that's what's happening with Marvel MCU right now. It's like, okay, we got crazy. Let's bring it back in.
Let's bring back Robert Downey Jr. He'll just play everyone.
Yeah, let's retcon this whole thing.
Have you seen the poster where every Avenger is Robert Downey Jr.?
I haven't. That's awesome.
But then everyone was like, I'd see it. I would watch that movie.
The other thing we keep seeing is new technologies emerge. We see publishing opportunities. We see cross medium from comic book to TV to movies. We see the internet, the freaking internet happening in the modern age. Where all of a sudden, we can trade. Forums come out. The aftermarket emerges. There's so many things.
The formation of cover price.
The formation of cover price, the greatest. In the back.
That's right. Yeah.
And of course, publishers competing and motivating each other. So I talked to Matt and I said, Matt,
yes,
we are in no position to create any names. Who are we to come up with anything? And Matt said, John.
I said John Valjean.
I don't know what you said. I forgot what you said. We came up with this. We said, and Matt, I don't know if you want to talk about it or do you want me to? First of all, I should say nothing is set in stone. We are not comic book historians. We are mere people who started a website that helps people track their collection value. However, we live this stuff. We see this stuff every single day. And here's our recommendation at this point in time. It may change by the end of the year because we're going to keep showcasing this. The Chrome Age, instead of ending in 2008, it should go to 2000. Do you want to talk about why?
Yes, I do. Well, 2000 was, we kind of went over it. It was the clear year where things changed dramatically it's the birth of the aftermarket, literally in 2000, because you already have eBay there. I clearly recall, and this is a documented fact, that the Ultimate Universe saved comic books in general. Marvel was about to be done. They were still coming out of their bankruptcy. They were almost dead. They needed a Hail Mary pass to bring back comic books. If Marvel went down, everyone else would have went down easily. So their Hail Mary pass was bringing in Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate X-Men. It was a huge hit. It brought people back to shops. It was the first book that I remember people flipping immediately, the next week, the next day on eBay, because eBay was now around. It was crazy. And now everyone was showing up for issue 2, 3, 4. They were picking up every single Ultimate book. The same craze we saw around the recent Ultimate craze was what happened then, but in a huge way. Then you started seeing Image Comics being following this trend. Hey, let's put out Walking Dead. Let's put out Saga. Let's put out Why the Last Man. Well, that was Vertigo. But there was this birth of this aftermarket where you can flip comics, where you can now actually sell comics and buy comics. This industry was feeding itself. You can make a living off of selling comics. Stores were coming back. Stores were thriving. It was a new boom, and it was all thanks to the eBay to Ultimate line, and then specifically then when CGC came around, it was like, hey, that book you have that's worth $100, you get it graded, now it's worth $300. So now there was just money circulating in this industry, and whether you believed in grading or not, it made people money, and people then took that money and they bought more comic books. This is the cycle that has happened for the last 24 years. So whether grading is good or bad, whether you don't like it, it created a huge ecosystem that has not only kept this industry alive, but it's one of the and the only forms of print media to be alive. But it's thriving because of those changes made in the year 2000. If you want to quote Conan O'Brien for his old bit, in the year 2000. In the year 2000. No one young knows what we're talking about anymore. Yeah, Joseph had a great point. This was also a time when people who didn't have a local comic shop could buy new books, could jump into the trend. Like I had to buy my Death of Superman from a guy who knew a guy in New York and mailed it out
off a truck.
Yeah. You know, it was impossible to find something. You'd go to your shop, they were sold out. Sorry, kid, kick some rocks, you know. But now you can kind of like,
I see young Matt going, shucks, kicking rocks.
I'm not born in the 30s. You know, but I remember as a kid, I saw my Spawn. As a kid, I paid the most I ever paid for Spawn #1, which is $20. Still has the price tag on it. And my running joke is that it took me 30 years to get my price back on a Spawn #1. But you know, that was a huge point that then ushered in this aftermarket age. And we were talking about, John, let me know if I'm jumping ahead here, but the Palladium age we were talking about was a good earmarker because
I do have one correction though, Matt. One thing. So you said 1992 to 2000. Ultimate Line started in 2001. So you're saying with the start of it starts the Palladium age?
The Ultimate age, I mean, you could even, we were throwing around the Ultimate age, but it's so specific and a lot of people didn't like it. But the Ultimate age, I mean, there's the reason why we landed on the Palladium age, because the Palladium age, Palladium is a metal that makes other metals stronger. So that's why we
it increases their value. No, but
it increases the value of more simple metals and other metals. So that's why we're like, what's that?
Well, I guess what I was saying, sorry to interrupt you, but like so you were saying that one of the things that makes the Chrome age interesting was that the Ultimate Line launched, but it actually launched in 2001.
Yeah, sorry, it was the reason it ended. It was like the end of the Chrome was marked with the Ultimate age and the aftermarket boom. Yeah,
gotcha.
Yeah,
okay,
sorry.
And so yeah,
and at that point, at that time, the Chrome comics weren't a thing. Like, you know, if you look at all those books, there were some, but it was like just standard variants. So you know, there wasn't an abundance of cover gimmicks.
That's because the market crashed. You know, that's all that speculation bubble disappeared in the Chrome in this time frame. And it basically 2000s when CGC launched as well. So that's a good kind of like boom. eBay launches, CGC launches. That's a good kind of cultural bookend of the aftermarket, you know, shifting. Sure. So I like that with the Chrome age going there. So what about Palladium age, Matt? You're saying that this is one metal that increases the value of other metals. Why is that a theme?
Yeah, I mean, this was a time where you kind of combine all the trends that happened in the past 60, 70, 80 years of comics. And it's all happening once again. Now you have people that are picking up their superhero books. You have like more adult comics that were being popularized during the 80s. You were books were being relaunched, and you know, there was all these big changes happening. We had, you know, this is when The Walking Dead came out. This is when Saga came out. You know, those changed independent comics in a big way. You could release a big comic like Saga, and it didn't have to be a Marvel DC book. A zombie book was one of the most popular books on the rack. You know, that goes back to the pre-code horror stuff, right? You know, it's just interesting to see everything kind of melded together in this era that then went right into I mean, this also was the age of new like Marvel films. You know, like you said, it was all the Spider-Man stuff and the X-Men stuff and Fantastic Four and Batman's, and we were getting not just comic book films but really good stuff.
But to your point, like Palladium, right? It enhances other metals. That's movies driving content for comic books and driving interest in comic books, bringing in new fans.
Right.
Like it really, and this is the age. So I have a timeline real quick. So 9/11 happens in 2001, which is a huge cultural event as well. Not a huge impact on comics in a sense, but aside from like we're going to war and this crazy stuff, Ultimate Line starts. MySpace, Facebook launches, right? YouTube launches in 2005. That Marvel launches House of M. We get Infinite Crisis, the 2005 version. DC does 1 year later to kind of undo it and say sorry. Civil War happens, Planet Hulk happens, Annihilation happens, Conquest. And now we see the streamers happening. This is all the stuff that we showed in the slide deck, and the iPhone launches. So all these things, technologies coming together, giving us the opportunity to kind of engage with the content in a new way. Matt, why is it the Titanium Age? In 2008?
I don't remember.
Oh, okay. Because Iron Man in 2008 says his suit is made of titanium.
That's right. That was our play on it, because Iron Man's suit for the first two films were made of titanium. And we were kind of trying to think of a lot of people were like, we didn't want to call it the MCU age or the movie age, but the Titanium age kind of ties into. I mean, Iron Man was, even though someone said you're giving movies too much credit for influencing the comic books, but you talk to any shop owner during this time frame, 2008 on, people were coming into shops because of these films that were being released. There was a new influx of new customers. There were a greater opportunity, specifically later with Guardians was when it really picked up, or Civil War was really when it picked up. So that was Captain America too. But like that's when really anything that was coming out in that film, you could speculate on books, you could flip books, books that were as common as Civil War that everyone had in their collection. Those were selling for $40, and they were sitting around in collections for $1 a piece, and back issues for $1 a piece. And now you can flip them for $40. It was unheard of to be able to do this before. Yeah. And it all changed on how people interacted with comic books, the aftermarket grading. Those films had a major influence on how we as collectors responded to the market. Yeah. So Vibranium was another name we talked about too. Yeah.
I mean, that's a great point though, of we're giving movies too much credit. Agreed. But like Matt's saying, the impact of new fans coming in is a cultural shift that's going to change. Look at. I remember going 7 years ago to a Comic-Con and going now, and it's very different. There's a lot more representation. There's a lot more independence. You see manga and stuff like that. I don't know. Movies do.
This is more on the nose. The Iron Age. Yeah, Bigby, you're not wrong.
Damn it, that's good. Damn it, why didn't you think of that?
Where were you yesterday, Bigby?
Jeez, man.
Adamantium could be the name for the current age once they decide when it ends in the future. Yeah.
So again, this isn't set in stone. This is just us presenting it to everybody and getting some feedback. Hopefully you guys chat away and put some comments on this video, and let's have a conversation around it. But in the Titanium Age, you get Iron Man. You get the first time.
Or now maybe the Iron Age. I do like that a little bit better now that I hear it.
Yeah, but there was an age. Someone called they called a different age the Iron Age. Another historian, and that's why I think we stayed away from it, because I think they were saying that the around the, I forget what it was. I think it was around the Bronze, where you're clubbing together, making iron, you're making a blacksmith, making things. So they were calling that the Iron Age.
Well, that's what Iron Man does in Iron Man.
Ah!
Breaking his suit.
Yeah. So in this time, you get Iron Man. You get the first time the iPhone starts having an app economy to mix in some stuff. Global financial crisis happened in 2008, the housing market crash. You get Blackest Night from DC. Walking Dead is optioned by Marvel in 2008. You get DC's Brightest Day. You get Flashpoint, New 52. Ultimate Fallout happens in 2011. The MCU Phase 1, Phase 2. Secret Wars from Marvel. Convergence from DC. And it ends in 2015 with the Ultimate imprint being ceased. Right? They stopped publishing it. So Matt wanted it to end in 2015, and Brandon and I were talking. We were like, well, I like Endgame. The movie being 2019 ending it. But again, it is putting a lot of focus on the on that movie. But then you go 20, and it's kind of a round number. 2020 to present day is now the modern age, maybe the variant age.
I think I ended it at 2015 because in 2015, maybe even 2014, there was a massive shift in collecting to focusing on covers above all. Whether it was a standard comic, whether it was a variant comic, it didn't matter if it featured an artist or art that everyone loved. Like I'm just trying. Batgirl 12 Art Trim's cover was like one of those that kind of started that I recall back then, where people were like, I love that cover, I want it. And then it went from a dollar book to a $50 book to a $75 book. That was the first shift in like, I'm only buying this for the cover. I don't care that it's not a key. I don't care that it has no importance to any of this. I just want that cover. That's it. And that lasted until up until COVID.
And I wonder though, like,
yeah,
you and I are different. People watching are probably different than other collectors, right? Yeah. These are speculators and flippers and collectors, but like, with vision, right? And I think for a lot of people, yeah, I mean, you ask yourself, when was the last time you read a comic that you bought? You're buying 10 to 15 at the store each week. And you're like, did I read all those? Oh, I bought it because of the cover. I think that's a fair case. But I do think there's a lot of, I mean, it might alienate a lot of the comic fans out there who are reading for the stories. They're buying the trade paperbacks. And
well, I mean, but like at the time, like one of the key parts in this is the print runs were low from 2010 to 2012, specifically 2010, 2011. That's known as the golden era of variants in terms of like rarity. That's where you got Spider-Man 667, the Delato that goes for 10 grand. That's when you got, someone said, all the Venomized covers. That's when Marvel was doing theme months, and they were doing the Venomized Mary Jane, $1,500 raw book. Like, and then all those other, the Venomized Hulk book is like a $400 or $500 book. That's when all these variants, the Legion of Superheroes 23, Adam Hughes's Supergirl on an asteroid, that was a 1 in 10. It was a pretty relatively low ratio, but it's now a $800 raw book, and it's just because in that era, everyone was done with, like during that time when people at that time in 2010, people weren't. Stores couldn't get these variants. They weren't getting all these covers. They weren't qualifying for them because print runs were down. And then up to 2015, like those, everyone wanted those covers because they're absolutely fantastic, right? They're some of the best variants out on the market. So that was that's what started this whole cover-driven market. If people were going back and saying like, I can't find this cover, can you find this cover? I just remember a time when story wasn't talked about unless it was in a speculative way. Like, oh, this might get optioned. I'm going to pick up this book because it might get optioned. The only stories that I remember people talking about was some of the, like Morning Glories and Saga and Why the Last Man, the stuff that we know that took off in that independent boom. I don't remember anyone talking about Marvel or DC stuff except when the New 52 launched, which was in that time frame. And that also created a boom of covers. Like people were buying all those covers because people were a lot of people walked away from DC at that time because people hated it so much. But people then it produced also, like people are now going back to that well. Because there are some fantastic covers that were in there, and it gave us Court of Owls, so you can't be too mad at New 52.
So we thought of a lot of other stuff too. Like again, who are we? What do we know?
Right.
This is just us taking some time looking through all these things. One of us, we did suggest Vibranium Age, Adamantium Age. The Silicon Age, I liked that one just because of the technology being merged, but it was focusing too much on culture rather than comic books. The Screen Age, like the movie Screen Age. So we were playing around. Again, this is the start of the conversation. And I think it's a lot of you are very passionate. Obviously, you're here listening to us on a Friday. You're passionate about this stuff. we want to do the community a solid. We want to make sure we choose something that makes sense. So we're going to put out another survey in a few months with more refined options. And then whatever we find out, whatever you guys decide is what we're going to do. I hope.
Someone said, you guys are making this naming really complicated. That's why I suggested the cover age. But it is. It's a little more complicated than the cover age, because then it disregards the content age, which was such a huge thing. It is. When we're so close to it, it's a little hard to name things because we don't have that that hindsight vision, right? Like we can't see it as clear as we can with a few more years in front of us. But we're not too far. We're on the same story. And Kolek said stories still matter. See, stories have always mattered. That is definitely the case. There was just and we're kind of back into this right now, where now the market is both into the stories and into covering, into buying covers. So it's kind of like everyone's doing both, and it's kind of, it's weird. It's kind of not either. It's the first time we've seen since we started. It was always a movie driven. All of our top 10, all the books that were on there was always content driven. For the past 2 years, we've seen a way more story driven trends, which is fun and fantastic. But yeah, are we shooting for
by the end of the year? Yeah, JD, I mean, we're gonna do a few more panels at conventions with this and
be right back, guys.
And we're gonna do a few more things like that. So yeah, hopefully by the end of the year we'll be able to finalize it. I mean, we get to change how we organize comics and on cover price, so we get to define that. Matt might call it the Matt age, and then everyone will hate us. But the whole goal here is to like I said, do a solid for the community and make sure that like whatever we decide, we get like proof saying like, look, there's like 5,000 people who agree with this. We think this is a good decision. But again, it's contentious. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone has what should you call it? We don't know. We're going to do our best. And hopefully it makes sense. Yes, the cover price age. You're going to get brownie points for that. But yeah, no, of course not. We would never like be that blatant with our branding. So for those of you who just joined or are finishing up, thank you guys so much. I want you to remember that we're doing a giveaway. Let me put up the thing for the giveaway real quick. We are giving away this art. I think it's Art Germ KRS cover for Witchblade. It's pretty awesome. Because you guys are so kind and you put up with me talking for an hour and a half. We'll do that right now. Put in #age, get it? Because it's the age of comics, to enter. And I will start doing, we'll do that giveaway in a little bit. But to get back to our conversation. So start putting in #age if you want to be entered to win that comic, and we'll send that out to everybody. Yeah, so don't forget, like and subscribe. I mean, if you like the stuff that we're doing, we love comics. We love comics, and we want to like share that with you guys. And like I said, when I did the research on all this, it's like it blew my mind how little I knew. I thought I was a fan and I love comics. Didn't know shit. Didn't know anything about it. And you fall in love with ages. I didn't realize I love the Chrome Age, man. All that silver, all that foil, like just everything that was going on. It was insane. It was insane. Let's see. Prismatic Age, or there were actually prismatic covers. Yeah, there was. There was. You get the poly bags. You get the cards that were fitted in the back. Publishers were trying so many things. They were trying to do just to sell. So what would do? That whole card game. And I think some of that might have predated all the Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon. Comics were trying to do cards. Matt, do you think comic books predated like Pokemon cards, like comic cards?
Say that one more time.
So I was just thinking, like, as in the Chrome Age, when comics were, they were trying everything. That's when you get the cards that would go in a poly bag and all that kind of stuff. That was like in the 95, 97. Did that predate like Pokemon and not Magic? Magic the Gathering was around.
Well, I mean, No, like Marvel cards were still around. Pokemon was, I think, came to here in the States in 92, 96, 96. Yeah.
So it's all these people learning and taking from each other.
So I mean, like people. So it's kind of funny. Like before, when people thought it was George Washington Bridge was going to be in Captain America, the new film, and then that was proven wrong. He's now Sidewinder. It was the joke. Was the last time that trended was a few years ago. X-Force was trending because of the card that was in X-Force was Deadpool's rookie card. This is back when the height of the card market was just exploding. It's always been hot, but it was like, what was that? 2020, 2019, something like that, where everyone people went crazy buying X-Force ones for the Deadpool card.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that was crazy
because it was his rookie card, And I think if people realize that again, they'll probably, I don't know if it'll ever get crazy. I think X-Force saw its 15 minutes in the light, for the third time, and maybe fourth time.
My camera went. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I saw you for a second.
You did? Well, if I touch something, sometimes this stuff turns off. Sorry, my camera
We'll touch it again. Why do we have the most simplified graphics for our pictures? By the way, it's like just a little person. There you go.
You can see me? You can't see me.
No, I can't see you. It's just this is really good content now. We had people, and now they're
I know. Well, let me say real quick, guys. Please, if you, I just checked the giveaway to see how many people. We got 28 entries.
Throw it up again if you can.
I had to refresh the page. If you put it in one more time, put #age. I want to make sure everybody's accounted for. #age to be entered in the giveaway. I want to make sure I get everybody there. It wasn't live updating, so I was like, what the hell? That's why. Bypass OBS.
Chris Allen says bypass OBS. I think.
I know. Thanks, hey, Chris. Yeah, no, I was going to, but I trust me. I have to reset the system. It won't let me bypass it. But anyway, it's okay. It's okay.
Okay, so #age is what people are doing.
#age. Yeah.
Do you want to? Okay, yeah, you got it up there.
Let me try real quick.
#age to win some books. And if you guys are just joining us live, we give away books every single week. We're going to start giving them away on the other channels. I just need to send stuff to Laura. And if you're waiting for your books, yes, I will get them out. I have the list here. I'm going to work on them this week, and I know I keep saying that.
Be gentle with Matt.
Yeah, it's been a crazy month.
Matt's the gatekeeper of all of our books. We should give it to another.
Yeah. I should show. I'm like, I don't know. You can see there's a stack of stuff here, but.
So here's the giveaway. Make sure you type in #age in the comments, and we'll do this in about a minute. But again, thank you guys so much for watching. I know this was a long one. Hopefully it was interesting. Hopefully there's something to think about. We'll revisit this in the future, and we will figure some stuff out. But it was.
I think the takeaways are that the Chrome Age seems like a pretty firm break in the modern era, for one thing. The lingering question is, what is that next one, and when does it end, right? And I really feel strongly that it starts in 2000 or 2001. And then the question is, what from 2000 to now? When does it get broken up? And I think you had a good point. That shift, that graph that you showed from 2019 to 2014, when did that shift swing over into the favor of variance? Do you remember, according to your data?
Oh yeah. That was. So I probably should.
John, is the #age case sensitive?
I don't think it is, but put it in the right way, and I don't believe it is. I think it's fine, but I don't want to be.
Well, we got 50 watching and 31 entering, but not everyone's a Witchblade fan, so
and some people are probably driving. I'm going to change this banner. I'm sorry, like what amateurs over here with our stuff. I'm going to make it match age to age lowercase. There you go. And then we'll say age. There you go. Okay. So what were you saying, Matt, a second ago?
I don't even remember.
I had a whole point, but anyway. All right.
I was asking the eras. That's right. The graph that you showed, the swing from variance from 2019 to 2024. Do you remember what year was the tipping point? Was it during COVID? Was it like 2021?
No, I got to do a better analysis of like a breakdown each year by year from, let's just say January, or pick a couple months to do the analysis.
I would guess that 2023 was when it really spilled over, because it definitely wasn't during COVID, because a lot of stuff shut down. So no one was producing covers. I would guess that it was 2022, 2023. Yeah. That might be a good time to end, like right after COVID. I mean, that was super impactful. The era of price hikes.
All right, I'm gonna run this to thank everybody. Good luck to everyone. Whoever wins, please reach out to either me, John at Cover Price, or Matt at Cover Price. Oh, concrete sandals.
That sounds really uncomfortable.
Yeah, why are you doing that to yourself, Mr. Concrete Sandals? I take a quick screenshot of this. I then send this to Matt. If you guys, Mr. Sandals or Mrs. Sandals, I don't know.
Right.
Thank you for winning. Congratulations to you. Thank you for everyone for watching. Reach out to us at either Instagram via chat, or me, John at Cover Price, or Matt at Cover Price, and give us your address and your Cover Price membership number or name or username, so that we can make sure you're who you are. You can verify you. And there you go. Sorry my camera went out, but you guys saw enough of me.
At least it ended right at the right time, when people were like sick of us,
When was that? Maybe everyone.
It was like probably 30 minutes ago. But no, I'm just kidding.
Fair enough.
No, it's all good. All right. Great job, John. You did a nice. I wouldn't call it speedy, but we got through it. There was a lot to cover.
We try here at Cover Price.
Oh, I like our background music. We should just keep that going.
There you go.
All right. Thanks, folks.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.
Bye.